Welcome, horror fam, to HHN 365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with my co-hosts, Duff and Jonathan. Jess is not here today.
Again.
Again.
We talked about this
Yeah.
a couple weeks out. Nice vacation.
She'll be returning soon.
But missing quite the big episode, to be fair.
Yeah. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at HHN365 and at TikTok at HHN365pod. Join us in our Discord. The link is in the description. And check out our merch shop at HHN365.com. Always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. On today's show, we're going to go over some news and rumors, but talk about the elephant in the room, which is we got our second announcement of the year, which is Naughty Dog's The Last of Us.
Yeah. Well, first announcement of the calendar year.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Regardless, we're going to talk about The Last of Us. There's a few things we'll discuss news and rumors wise, but I think we just kind of kick it off there, right? One quick thing before we do, though, reminder, our next HHN 36 Live, which is our live TikTok show, where you can come hang out with us on location at Universal Studios Florida or on TikTok. It's going to be happening Wednesday, June 28th at 5 p.m.-ish.
Yeah.
Depending on what time we get there after work and stuff, but around 5. But yeah, let's get into it, I guess.
Let's do it. Let's hop into it.
So, as expected, it's been rumored for a couple weeks now. June 15th was the date, after all. Just after noon, we got the announcement that The Last of Us, Naughty Dog's The Last of Us, will be coming to both Orlando and Hollywood's HHN events this year. And reviews seem pretty mixed from people on social media, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of people excited, but there's a lot of people like, oh, it's not scary. Or they're basing it off the TV show too in some cases. I mean, Jonathan, do you feel that way? Do you feel like it seems kind of mixed from what you're seeing?
I've seen mixed things. I've seen some incredibly positive. I've also seen some incredibly negative, like really negative, on social media. And I really wonder if it's like let's say if there was a scenario where instead of the video game being announced, it was just a show, right? If people would have the same negative reaction, but in this case, just because it says video game, people are like, oh, well, video, how would that translate? Well, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it was the show, people would be more positive on it, even though the video game has more creatures, like way more creatures than the show does.
It's funny, though, because there's a lot of people who they're saying, thank God it's not the TV show and it's the video game. So I feel like you would have just had some others flop the opposite way if that would have happened. So I am kind of surprised that this is like a divisive property at all. I thought it would be like a 90% excitement. It's more like a 60-65% excitement.
Yeah, I'm shocked by it. I mean, obviously, when you're doing a haunted house, even if the property that is not 100% scary all the time, it's going to be a haunted house. You're going to focus on the scary parts. You're going to cut it to tell a story in a way that is going to be, making an amazing haunted house. I'm not concerned about, the lack of scares. This is not the Ghostbusters. This is not Beetlejuice. This is not Killer Clowns. This is going to be scary.
Yeah, definitely. I think even if you didn't necessarily find the game or the show or whatever base material you're looking at scary, look at the creatures, look at the settings. It's not like they're just going to be like, they were creeping around and nothing was happening in this scene, so that's what's going to happen here. No, they're going to have them fucking jump out at you in scary settings in every room, basically.
Right.
They're not going to take the not scary parts. They're going to shove as much scary as they can in. So, I mean, listen, there's IPs I'm down on too. I get it. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But this could be my most hyped IP when we get to Hype List season. We'll see. We'll see. Let's get to the actual announcement quickly. They did do an announcement video, of course, very much akin to the style of last year's announcement videos, where it seems it's going to be kind of a group of friends, probably all tied together. Jonathan, did you want to break down the video a bit?
Yeah. So basically, like you said, it's a group of friends. They're all on a Zoom type or a Discord, something of that sort, an online video service. And it's just this one friend in their house, and she's playing The Last of Us and chatting with her friends on her computer. And one of the friends online goes like, "Hey, have you heard about that legend? They're talking about the legend that we've been hearing the past
The legend,
couple of
the universal
teases
legend,
and
that one
mm-hmm.
that we saw in the do not watch video.
Exactly, exactly, and they also make a fun little reference going like, "Oh, if you pause at 32, because HHN 32, you see this," and as they're talking, something starts happening, and I think it was 32 seconds into the announcement video, which I thought was quite clever.
Mm.
They have like this thing pop up on the computer, and it has all these symbols that we've been seeing for the past couple of teases and the do not watch video as well. And then everything goes dark and it becomes the Halloween announcement video. I mean, no,
It does. Oh,
no,
you forgot one part though. That rune, like the things we've
yes.
been deciphering, spelled out "never go alone."
Oh, it did. I didn't
Yes,
even notice that.
yes, it
Oh
did.
my
So,
god.
yep.
But yeah, basically after that, there is a the lights turn off. There is a shadow of a clicker, sort of walking towards the girl playing the video game. As it gets close, oh no, everything's gonna go wrong, and then the lights turn on and the clicker's gone and nothing's over there. And she's all saved. So I'm curious what our thoughts are on the actual announcement video, because I have mixed thoughts
Mm.
about how they're probably going to end up doing the rest of the IP announcements this year, if they're going to continue this style.
Yeah, so I liked last year's style, even though not every video was great. I do like the whole style of kind of giving it its own character to it and its own unique take that all comes together at the end. This specific one, like you mentioned, was basically the Halloween announcement over again. It was the same exact thing, just with a clicker instead of our favorite Mikey guy. But
Yeah.
I like the base of what this style announcement is, though. So I'm not complaining.
Mm. Yeah. I need to see more. Like, I needed to see what the other ones are. Like, I'm not mad at what, the connecting type of announcement style. I think that is really clever. I am gonna be mad, or not mad, just a little upset if every video is just sort of copies of what was before. Like, this one was very much
Mm.
like heavily influenced by the Michael Myers, the Halloween announcement video, down to the killer disappearing
We're
and
just
just
missing
being
the dog, unfortunately.
yeah, you're honestly, the dog made the Halloween announcement video like a little funny. It was like, oh, the Michael Myers turned into a dog. Oh no. So yeah, like I hopefully the future videos they do something interesting with this concept that isn't just past, recreating past videos. I will say the one benefit this announcement video has, compared to something like Halloween, the Halloween announcement video, is that I think it had a bit more, and I could be wrong, a bit more production value. It seems like at least the sets were filled with Easter eggs, in terms of like mushrooms,
Yeah. All the
recreating The Last of
posters seem
Us.
to have some sort of meaning and tied in.
Yeah.
They had the window
Mm-hmm.
shot that obviously was supposed to resemble that of the main screen or of the game itself. So yeah, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
detail used, very very fleshed out sets. And one thing to point out
I
before
definitely
we move on from the
appreciated
go ahead.
those. Oh no, I definitely appreciated all the Easter eggs and the stuff hidden in the rooms, and all the posters. Like, I do think, if I think that is a very clever thing to do. Like, even on the phone she had, that Horror Nights, the Twitter account, even posted a better picture of later, was just like on her phone, her screensaver was like mushrooms, which was like, okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully the future IP announcements, whatever they may be, around the room or whatever they are, hidden, things just tying into that IP or just the general feeling of it. I feel like that's fun. I like having little things that I can go back and watch the video and go, oh, there was that and there was that, even if they're just silly mushrooms.
And one thing before we move on from the video to point out, because I don't think we're going to really talk about this later in the show. A lot of people point out that one of the friends on the Zoom call has headphones on, calling back to Stranger Things, and that'll be a Stranger Things announcement character. And we also recently had our first not just person with a rumor or insider with a rumor, but like an outlet has now posted an article about Stranger Things being rumored to come to the event as well. So to that property coming, and it looks like, yeah, I agree that character could be the one, could get maxed in the announcement video. So we'll see.
Not Vecna, just maxed.
But going to the actual announcement and the description that HHN leaves for the house, it's interesting because they leave out a word you'd expect. You and your squad will encounter the haunting and overgrown world of Naughty Dog's video game in a brand new, terrifying way as you make your way through an abandoned Pittsburgh. Join Joel and Ellie, and don't make a sound if you want to survive clickers, hunters, and more. No matter what, keep finding something to fight for. Yes. Yeah, that sounds like Last of Us, I guess. Yeah. Again, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Which I think we'll talk a bit about more later too. So
yeah, that's interesting that they're going to focus on that one location.
I think that location does have a lot. Like, it gives you everything you could get out of that property to see visually, So it makes sense.
It's definitely, when you think of Last of Us, Pittsburgh is one of those places that I think your mind immediately goes to. It has some of the most recognizable just sets, and feeling of The Last of Us out of the game and the show.
Yeah, definitely.
So it makes sense to focus on that.
And then there was also a LA Times article where they talked to Neil Druckmann, who is the president of Naughty Dog, as well as a creator of The Last of Us itself. Let me just read the quote in this phrase, or the paragraph they have from him here. As a massive fan and frequent attendee, they always say that, don't they, of Halloween Horror Nights, we are honored to have The Last of Us included in this year's lineup. It has been an incredible thrill for us at Naughty Dog to collaborate with Universal, bringing the world of the game to life, focusing on even the tiniest details that our fans know so well. In a release, he also notes guests will team up with Joel and Ellie and come face to face with terrifying clickers, raiders, and more. So
yeah,
just a little addition to Neil Druckmann, who we'll hear about in a second, because the way this property came to HHN was interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it was. But I mean, honestly, we can just jump right into that because I feel like that's a really good segue into
definitely
how this property happened. And basically, on December 23rd, 2021, Neil Druckmann, who we just talked about, tweeted on Twitter about how much he wanted to see The Last of Us as an HHN house. And he came out and said, right when the property got announced, and even I think John Murdy did as well, that Michaela reached out to him after that tweet and set something up and made a connection. And I'm sure a lot of things happened in between that tweet and now, but long story short, that is the start of us getting the Last of Us house this year.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that he literally just said, hey, let's do this. Michaela was like, yes, let's do this. Correct. That sounds great. We had the same idea.
Yeah, this is interesting. This also lends a lot of credence to the rumor that The Last of Us was supposed to happen last year and then dropped out. The timing with that, if he tweeted this in December 2021, it would make sense that they were potentially preparing this for 2022, and then something happened. and they pushed this back to this year.
Yeah, even though it's not the show itself, I'm sure they wanted to line it up with the show because that's going to draw
Yeah,
to the property.
definitely.
It doesn't matter if it's game or show. People are going to see Last of Us and go, "Ooh, I watched that show."
Yeah, and I imagine that HBO Warner Brothers probably had clauses and things about it as well as
Also
that
possible.
they
Yeah.
had to use it first type of situation.
Potentially, for sure.
I really think, like, I think some people have talked about this, about, the potential. We've obviously talked about the rumor that the show was supposed to come last year, and then that got delayed, and then we got Evil Dead Rise, and then that got delayed, and then we got Hell Black Horror, or Horror Hotel in Hollywood. But I almost wonder if, like, the show was planned for last year and didn't happen, and after it ended, there's Michael Aiello and everyone was still in talks with Neil Druckmann, and they're just like, you know what? We've already had all this time, thinking of concepts. So let's just do the game, and like at this point, like I wonder if I really wonder if it was like originally the show, and then they're just like, we'll just do the game instead because it's just easier,
Potentially.
Yeah,
It's possible. So before we move on to some more details, because most of that's going to kind of be from John Murdy in our little John Murdy section we always has, because he loves to talk. The merch did come with this announcement, of course. They love doing the preview merch now. I love that they do it. Interesting thing about this merch drop, it's 2 items, and they were white. HHN shirt and mug were white. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
bold.
It just kind of caught me off guard. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kept seeing a lot of people saying that it was like Florida friendly. I don't know if white is necessarily Florida friendly because it's going to just show all your sweat stains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not gray, so I guess that's being Florida friendlier. But yeah, I don't. It's not for me, anyways. I think the design is cool, but it's also like massive. I don't like how big or how the sleeve logo looks either, or the HHN logo on the back neckline. I just don't like the shirt, but I do like the design itself. So the mug is a better option, but at that, I don't want a white mug. So it just didn't work for me. But cool design. Cool design.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I really do actually like the sleeve logo. I think that's the standout on that shirt. And I think that they definitely tried something. It just not necessarily my thing. I think it's just a little too big of a. If it was maybe a little bit smaller, this might be something that I would wear. But it's just not.
I'm not a huge fan of a graphic that takes up the entire shirt like this one does.
Yeah.
So I'm glad for everyone who got it and loves it, though. Like Jonathan, he got it. I don't know if he loves it.
Yeah. Thank you for getting it for me, guys. Because
no
I mean, as of now, I don't know if they're gonna restock yet, but I'm pretty sure all the merch is gone.
Yes,
or most of it has been picked off the shelf.
Yeah, before we move on, I want to talk a little bit more about the announcement itself. It seemed like there was a lot of like you mentioned earlier, there was a lot of talk that it was going to be happening on the 15th. The 15th is the day, but that didn't seem like it was really out what property was going to be, except until about maybe 3 or 4 days later, like right before it was about to happen. It seemed like the word got out to nearly everyone so much that like SeaWorld was like dropping hints that morning that they knew it was The Last of Us. It seemed like it was the worst kept secret that it was going to be The Last of Us. I don't know how words spread so quickly, but yeah, it seemed like just about if you had your ear to the ground, you knew what was coming when it came to The Last of Us.
I mean, it's just like The Last of Us fungus or virus or whatever whatever that is. It just kept spreading.
It did, and it seemed like to come out of nowhere, where we didn't kind of really know, and then all of a sudden it was like a couple of days, and then everybody, we started.
It was a very quick. Wasn't out there publicly at all. To it was everywhere publicly suddenly.
Yeah.
There was articles written about it.
Even
Like,
outlets.
the craziest thing, like you said, SeaWorld literally made a joke about it before it was announced.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow, okay.
So yeah, it seemed
I think
to
it was
really get out there quick.
It was either the day before or the day of. I think it was the day before that outlets were like, "The Last of Us is a rumor coming to Halloween Horror." And at that point they all knew. They all knew it was coming out the next day. That's why they rushed it out. They rushed it out the day before because it spread like wildfire. That SeaWorld thing really caught me off guard. Like, I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, oh, another company have just said what IP Horror Nights is gonna announce. Like, minutes before they actually announce it. That is insane.
That was something. I mean, I thought it was hilarious, but I don't know if
It
Universal
was.
did.
I don't know. Yeah.
Universal might not be too kind on that.
Yeah. Shall we move on to Murdy time?
Yeah, and I do want to mention that Murdy has stated on one of his tweets, and obviously a ton of other people worked on this house. These are just the people that he mentioned, that this was a collaboration with Orlando and Hollywood. So Michaelello, Nate Stevenson, these are the people he directly mentioned. Him and Hollywood's Chris Williams all helped work on this house. So part of me wonders if it's a kind of a weekend situation where both of them are gonna end up with pretty similar treatments. I'm interested to see what exactly this means, or if they're both just gonna be different houses and they just both worked with Neil and Naughty Dog in general and whatever, and all those people to sort of get the concept down pat, and then they all sort of branched off from there. So interested to see how they actually tackle the house on both coasts.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested too, especially since that it seemed like last year Hollywood really did seem to put a lot of money and pull out the stops in a way that we hadn't seen for a while. They seemed like they were a little bit on a lower tier. I think last year they really stepped up their game with some of the Weekend House and some of the other IPs. I think it'll be very interested to see if it's going to be the trend and they're going to really throw a lot of money at The Last of Us and some of these other rumored IPs and see if they can't try to get a very bit closer to the quality that you tend to expect over here in Orlando on that coast.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hopefully every year, we go to Hollywood every year. Hollywood just keeps increasing and getting a bigger budget, getting better, less and less black walls in the houses, better facades. I mean, last year they improved the facades dramatically. And I think every year Hollywood is just going to get better and better as long as the attendance, keeps on coming in, which it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. So I'm very excited to see all the investment they're putting into Hollywood's event. It makes me very happy.
Yeah, definitely.
But we can just jump right into what Duff alluded to, which is the John Murdy section. Or basically John Murdy on Twitter. He did do an official Q&A this time. Well, kind of. He asked people. He talked about The Last of Us on Twitter, and then everyone asked him questions, and he responded to them on Twitter. So this is basically a John Murdy Q&A, the creative director for HHN Hollywood. So everything we talk about now is going to be basically focused on Hollywood's version of the house, though in the end there could be similarities between Orlando and Hollywood, obviously, but most of the stuff we're going to talk about now is just purely Hollywood. And the first thing is location. The Last of Us will, in fact, be located in the Mummy Q. I want to give a shout out to my friend Kevin, who called this out. Like, we didn't even say it on the show, but he called it out way before we got to mention it, because he literally just looked at the facade that's being built there and said, that looks like the Pittsburgh QZ entrance. And you look at it now, I think it's now currently painted green, and you're like, yeah, it looks like the Pittsburgh QZ entrance, like almost, like you can see the structure for that for sure. And the second thing you also mentioned is that Chucky will be located in the Curious George tent where Scarecrow was located last year, which was something we discussed previously last week because it looks like a good guy doll factory. And yeah, so John Murdy saw that. I like to think that us and Kevin were like one of the first people to point it out, and John Murdy's like, damn, it just I can't hold it back now. It's too.
You know, I mean, he was
They
never.
were.
I mean, he was never going to hold back the Chucky one. That
Oh,
was just too late.
it was, yeah.
So
He's seeing people put two and two together of the boxes. He's like, damn, whatever.
also,
I'll just sell
Murdy, every year he's transparent. He's like, yeah, this is in this location. That's in that location. He doesn't care.
it. Mm-hmm.
He's like, you're going to see it anyways. What does it matter?
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing that he.
As long as it's been announced, he'll be like, yep, there it is. That's it.
So, I mean, here's a good question, right? So, The Last of Us will be located in the Mummy Q. Now, I've only experienced a couple houses in the Mummy Q before. My first was Texas. My second one was Legends. How do we think a property like The Last of Us will work in the Mummy Q? Do you think the Mummy Q has enough space for it? Or would we have rather seen it in a soundstage like the Walking Dead location or the soundstage they have already?
Well, I guess that means Hollywood is probably going to go for the more claustrophobic aspects of The Last of Us. I have to assume with this location because you either do that or you have to go big, and this isn't big enough for the big you would need, right? Like we're talking like walking through cities and shit. That's what you'd need for the big level. I don't see much of an in between. So it's going to focus mainly on the claustrophobic aspects, and I'm not against that. I think it should be scary as shit there because of that. And I think that if rumors are true, the soundstage itself will probably be served for the biggest IP that's coming, and I think that's more necessary. So it makes sense. I'm not mad at it at all.
Yeah, I know John Murdy mentioned in a couple of tweets, like just saying, like I didn't even pull it exactly because he just said it a lot that he intends for this house to be terrifying. So it makes sense if that's the angle you're going for, to make it a claustrophobic environment, to really make it feel like the clickers and the runners and the and the all we'll get to some more things later are all stalking you and you are their prey, because I feel like that in the game, that is the scariest part about them. At least what I've experienced so far. I haven't made it that far into it, but I've experienced that the scariest part is trying to walk around them without them noticing you. To really make them feel like they're stalking you, that they're so close, but if you just stay quiet and just hide or just walk very slowly, they won't catch you. So a claustrophobic environment for that sort of idea, though they're not really gonna, they're gonna be popping out and going boo. But for that sort of idea, works really well, at least for those creatures in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the next question for Murdy. He was asked, how was it adapting a video game into a house? He said, first time really for Hollywood doing a full-on game house. Whole new world, but very exciting. We've been wanting to get in the games for a while. This is a great property for that. He also added that it's always been interested in adapting a video game for HHN. To me, it expands our brand in a new direction. I would say the most interesting part about that quote is that he's really been looking into something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense. Orlando's done it a couple times. Been a while, but they've done it a couple times. But yeah, that is a completely different world to deal with. And we saw that in Orlando, where those houses came out almost a very different quality than anything else they've ever done. It just felt different. So I'm curious to see if that's going to continue this year, or because they also have a full live action TV show to kind of, obviously they aren't working directly off of, but like you've seen the live sets and what they would look now. Are they going to kind of look like the show because of that?
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's like perfect timing where pop culture wise, The Last of Us, I mean, I can't think of a survival horror game that that would have that same pop culture reference in 2023
Mhm.
that The Last of Us would have. I think, there's obviously been some in the past that I think are still big names, but they don't have that same pop culture reference. If we were to
No.
get a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill in 2023, I think The Last of Us still has that relevance, just because it wasn't that long ago where we got the second game. It was, and we had the TV show just last year. So I think it's just still very, very relevant. Whereas I don't know if there is other. I'm sure there are plenty of other games that are in the gaming world that would fit, but pop culture wise, I don't think there's anything quite like The Last of Us right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest pieces of pop culture media, period, right now. So, right, strike while it's hot, and they are. It just happens to be a video game, so there you go. John Murdy, enjoy and do well with it.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that excites me from this is that if this ends up doing well and it's a great success, and which I'm honestly I'm pretty confident it will be, at least for Orlando, hopefully for Hollywood. If it ends up doing well, then in the future, if there are situations where, kind of like Last of Us, there's a piece of media that has come out, um, and there's also a game based off that media, that they just go, you know what, we're just gonna do the game because it's easier. It's probably easier to work with the rights holders. There's going to be less dealing with actors' likenesses and everything like that. I assume in most cases, doing the game will be easier and more creatively freeing than doing whatever show or TV or movie it's based on. So if this does well, maybe they'll continue to do that, as long as obviously the property becomes as popular, like by having a movie or a TV show. I don't think we're ever going to get into territory where if it's just a game, we got a house. But I like for houses to continue to be just based on the games.
Yeah, I do like that. And we've never seen like just a full regular adaptation of just a game before either. We've had
No.
one that was like
Mm-hmm.
we're in the game. We've had one inspired by the movie and the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, little bits of both.
now it's
Yeah.
just going to be the game, it seems. So we'll see. We'll see. Let's see. What else was he asked? What was the hardest thing about making this maze? He said, just educating myself on the brand, watched hours and hours and hours of playthrough videos, etc., since my gaming skills are admittedly lame. Which, if you're wondering how you can catch up on The Last of Us, and you want to watch more than the TV show, even though that should be enough and you definitely grasp what's going on, just go watch playthroughs, go watch the cutscenes compilation on YouTube. Any of those types of videos, and you don't have to play the game. You'll get everything out of it. So,
Yeah. Although play the game,
but
like,
yeah, you should.
if you have
If you're
any
just like
interest,
really not interested in
Yeah.
games at all, there's other ways. But yes, play the game if you can.
The game is great. So
It is a fantastic game, and then you'll want to play part 2, which is potentially even better.
I do want to mention, the first time I read this, I was like, the first thing in my brain went to, before I started playing the game and whatever, I was like, like the person who's helping make this maze, this house, didn't play the actual game. Part of me is kind of worried. But then after playing the game for myself, or at least so far, I'm not far into it, but I'm just going along and playing. I'm like, yeah, I don't think playing it is really necessary to get to accurately get the vibes and the tone and what you really need to put in a house like this. I don't really think all like it's having the actual gameplay won't really, or playing. Okay, sorry, playing the actual game won't really affect how good or how good the house actually ends up translating. It seems more like a cinematic experience where the gameplay is there, but the stuff from that house is like you don't need to actually pick up a controller to understand.
Yeah, no, I mean probably not. Right.
It probably helps it probably helps a little bit if you've played and you are like a super, mega fan of the property, which I know. I think a lot of people have come out who have been working on this house in Orlando and Hollywood and saying, yeah, massive fans of the property. Can't wait. Been a fan for a long time, so can't wait to do it. So I'm sure on that aspect it helps. But I'm not worried just because John Murdy hasn't like actually picked up a controller, just because of how cinematic this video game really is. It's more of a, I think the best parts of this game come from the story itself and watching it unfold and uh, and all that good stuff. Sort of like what the show does.
And
So yeah.
jumping further down questions, because it kind of ties in. If you go even deeper and just don't take in this media at all, actually, the Hunt Girls asked if guests who have not played the game will understand the storyline of the house, which Murdy replied, "I tried to focus on that." So at least there is definitely an attempt to make sure that you don't have to actually know what's going on
Yeah.
to know what's going on.
I think the main thing
I'd like
that playing the game would do is it's going to probably introduce you to some of these creatures a little bit more than what the TV show probably did. Whereas the TV show, I think, I mean, you got to see them, but in the game, you get to see them over and over and over and over again, attacking you. So you get to kind of see all of the different. Creatures and the different levels of the infected and stuff. You get really
Mhm.
engrossed in that, whereas the TV show are just kind of watching, just cut scenes of the gameplays. You're not going to get as much of that. Um, but you'll still at least understand it for sure.
Yeah, I do think the story too is simple enough that I think most guests, as long as they make Murdy just said, like, makes an attempt to tell the story, I think most guests will be able to get it, because in the end, this is overly simplified, but it's a zombie story. It's a zombie story with factions, and we've seen sort of that stuff before in various media and HHN as well, with like Walking Dead and stuff. The only main difference, I think, for compared to like this property, that's going to be hard for people to uh, understand without any form of background, is why we're following this guy named Joel and Ellie, and like what their purpose in this story is. But I do think that the overall story of the game, like the basis that the basic why everything is the way that it is, I do think that'll be pretty easy to convey to most guests.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Another question: will there be bloaters? To which John Murray replies, "Would you like to see full-blown bloater? I would, and I also
Mm,
would, because if you don't know, bloaters are absolutely massive, and the makeup would look phenomenal if done right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If it's makeup, I could see them just like, here's a puppet bloater."
No, I think that would look great.
I hope so, but I'm just saying. Um,
Imagine this being like the final scene, in Hollywood's house. Like the final main thing is just a big bloater, and you're trying to like escape from that. I would love to see how they pull it off. I mean,
hmm,
just playing the game now, and there was even a bloater in the show as well, or at least a big creature. Just seeing how they look and how they move, and how, like, I mean, even in the game, you walk up to it and you die. Like, that's it. There's no getting close to it at all. You're just instantly dead. So these things are terrifying and big and large, and seeing them in person, for in real life, in that sort of setting, is gonna be crazy.
hmm.
And I'm almost positive that if Hollywood has bloaters, Orlando probably will as well. I
Oh,
don't see one
absolutely,
coast
Definitely.
doing it, not the
absolutely.
other.
So these last notes from John Margulies, let's just run through quick, because they're things we've either already discussed or just quick notes. Will we see more horror games in the future? He says it's possible. It's our first foray into that world. He mentions the house will focus specifically on the Pittsburgh section from a scenic perspective. It was also his favorite chapter from the game. It will be based on the first game. McGee FX has finished all the sculpts of the house already. There will be no masks for Joel or Ellie. That's great. Love to hear that. Naughty Dog was totally involved every step. The music from the game is a big part of the experience. I know Jonathan's very excited about that.
Yes.
And it will be 100% based on the game, not the show.
Okay, great.
Also, the house, this is separate from the property, but the house located in the Walking Dead attraction is an IP. Fun to speculate what that could be, even though I'm only thinking about their big IP at the moment, so not worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
When asked how many houses have still walkers, he replied, 3 sounds like a good number. That's not bad. That's not bad, I guess.
It just
Sure.
sounds like he's just making up.
He's like,
It is a good
More than
number.
one.
And regarding the Chucky facade, a Twitter user said that they thought it looked like the Good Guy Doll Factory. He responded, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Yes, we know it is.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the John Murdy Q&A section for both Last of Us and some other fun things in there. And that's also, I mean, the end of all of our The Last of Us news. And, you know, yeah, news, not rumors, just news at this point. Do we have any final thoughts? I feel like we've been talking about this rumored property for weeks. Like, you know, it's been rumored for such a long time that talking about it now, it's like, we've discussed it, you know?
We've been talking about The Last of Us as a rumor since literally last, like February 2022, if not like earlier, potentially. Like, yeah, I don't have much left to say. I will be excited for it. I am excited for it already. I don't need to wait to be anymore. Yeah, interesting. And I think the most interesting part for me is I think this is going to be one of those IPs that look very different on both coasts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just going by scale, right? Having The Last of Us in Hollywood be in the Mummy queue, which is relatively tight. I'm sure Orlando is going to want a space that's bigger, and I have a feeling that Orlando is going to aim for a bigger environment. You know, for those
the only
big,
not bigger environment in Orlando by like the scale you could use is like Fast and Furious. Even the Sprung tents bigger than Mummy. So,
and Chucky has already been said by Alicia Stella that to be in Fast and Furious. So, and I don't expect Last of Us in a Sprung.
No.
So, yeah, I think Orlando's going to go big with this property. So that's already 2 completely different takes on how to approach this IP.
And then sticking
both good
with one last thing from Hollywood, we also did get their dates and their full array of tickets released. The dates have been confirmed as the 7th of September through October 31st, which we discussed last week after a leak of that. And the tickets that are available, let me just run through them real quick. You have the general admission, of course, starting at $74. Express will start at $209. Unlimited Express starts at $249. The awesome after 2 p.m. day night pass. So that means you can enter the park during day operation after 2 and stay in for the event. Starts at $149. Then if you want to add Express onto that ticket, it goes up to $329. RIP tour this year will be starting at $379. The early access ticket starts at $10. And then they do have 2 options for frequent fear passes, being the frequent fear pass starting at $209, gets you 30 nights of the event, and the ultimate fear pass, which is every single night of the event in Hollywood for $329. Those are really fucking good prices. Gotta say.
They really are. Like, all of them are very reasonably priced, I think.
Yeah, I think Hollywood gets a little jacked up on their Express.
Yeah.
Like, their Express starts higher than ours does.
Right.
But other than that, like multi-night things and the options they have available, kind of beat us out.
Definitely, yeah. I think their tickets in general seem to be like pretty reasonable. I think the main talk that I've heard that people are upset about is that Express after 2 ticket. The after 2 p.m. with Express went up quite a bit from last year. That one I think was a very popular ticket, and they realized that, and because it was such a good deal last year. the Express after 2 p.m. with Express, where they made it, I think, to fit more in with the other tickets. That
Yeah.
like it made last year, it was like it made it no sense not to buy it. Now they made it fit in, I think,
And-
with all the other tickets.
And really, it still doesn't make sense not to buy it just looking at the price, because there is a what is that, $180 difference between no Express and Express, where the Express on its own costs $200.
Right.
So if you want Express, it's still the way to go for sure
Right.
in that case. But yeah, I see why they jumped it up to just match the value of Express to where it should be.
Right.
But yeah, that's a pretty large jump.
I mean, and based on last year, I don't know if they're going to change it this year, but that you were able to ride each express attraction during the day once, and then once the park opened for HHN, you were able to ride it again. So you really had access to each of attractions twice with that ticket. So it was essentially you got to ride basically anything that you wanted as often as you're probably going to want to.
Yeah. And I would like to point out, in a similar kind of scenario for the RIP tour, they do state that after your actual tour, you'll have unlimited express for the houses. The past 2 years I've done it, that has said the same thing. However, there has always still been access through the RIP line, unlimited, all night, even after your tour. I can't guarantee that is going to be the same this year. I'm just saying they've used that same verbiage in the past, and have still allowed you to use RIP all night. So,
the only real difference is, besides like pricing and stuff that I recognize from last year, is that the after 2 p.m. day and night ticket does include same day access to Super Nintendo World, which I think is going to be a big draw, like a big reason to get this ticket for a lot of people. From 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., which is an interesting time. I'm wondering how they're gonna run that, because that runs into HHN. So that's interesting. I'm interested to see how that ends up being. And also the inclusion of the new ticket we sort of briefly glanced over, which is the Halloween Horror Nights early access ticket, which gives you a head start in your night 1.5 hours before the event begins. And there's been a lot of controversy and talking about what this ticket means, because Hollywood has never really had this before. What people are assuming this means, and I still don't know for sure because I've been looking through the website and I can't tell if it's true or not, is that you have to buy this early access ticket even if you're already in the park, even if you are like a frequent Fear pass holder and also Universal pass holder and you're already in the park, that you can't actually do their version of Stay and Scream unless you buy this ticket. Though I don't know if that's necessarily the case, and I honestly don't know if we'll ever know until we get closer to the event, because the first thing my mind thinks of when I read this ticket option is that it's just a version of our Scream Early ticket, where basically if you don't already have access to the park, if you're not already in the park, this will get you into the Stay and Scream area. If you didn't previously have a ticket to Universal Studios Hollywood. So I don't know. Like, do you guys think they're just gonna make everyone who's already in the park buy this special ticket in order to do their version of Stay and Scream, or do we think this is just a Scream Early type ticket where it's not needed if you're already inside of Universal Studios Hollywood to begin with?
I'd assume it's just like our Scream Early, right?
It's a lot cheaper than
Just
our
way
Scream Early, though.
Yeah, ours has last year was 35, I think.
Yeah,
I want to
the
say.
cheap
Yep.
was, and but it got you in what, 2 hours early?
I think 3 hours.
3 hours. So it
Yeah, 3 hours early.
Or maybe it is 2. What time is it? Does it let you in at 3?
I think it let you in at 3, and
okay.
then,
so it is 2 hours.
5. Yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
you could,
So, and this one's an hour and a half, so it's a 30-minute difference. It's not huge for less than a third of the price.
But the Scream Early ticket is not necessarily giving you access to HHN any quicker, because the gates would open basically at the same time the Stay and Screams. It would let you actually get in to a stay and scream holding area. But the main thing about the Scream Early was so you could ride attractions, kind of our version of the After Two, really.
Mhm.
That would be, I would say, the closest thing to it. So they do have that option. I think the Scream Early, their ticket is,
You're basically going right into a corral. You don't explore the park.
I guess
It says
yeah.
the one part that is daytime admission to the park is not included. Access to Super Nintendo World during
Yeah.
Halloween Horror Nights event is not included.
So, so you can't ride any attractions.
So you basically just get shoved directly into like the stay and scream location.
You
wait.
Exactly.
How do they do that? Because people are going to go to the front of the park and have this early access ticket and say, "Hey, I'm here for the early access." Is like someone going to direct them to all the way? Because usually, unless they change the way early access works,
I'm pretty sure they'll.
Because I know early access.
I think I want to say they have like earlier they have like a holding area blocked off to either the right or the left of the entrance, and I think once the park
they can use that.
they will then let them go up to stay out in front of the lower lot, or like right before the lower lot or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how it works. So they get held at the front and like a corral until the park is clear, and then they can move on to the actual location.
And the way the wording makes it sound like the event will actually be open, so that you will get an access if for that amount of time to buy food and get into a house if you wanted to. That you will have access to the event. It's not necessarily just to be held. At least that's how it sounds like.
Looking further into it, it says ticket 1 includes early access general admission to select haunted houses. So I think it's directly saying the only things you can do are the houses that are open early.
Okay, so and select ones,
and that's if it's not misleading, is telling you you're going to go in the queue for those houses.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being because if it's only 5:30.
It's only 30-minute difference, or is it an hour?
Because difference? Does Universal or does Horror Nights in Hollywood typically open at 6:30, 7?
It says here, at least for general admission, that the event begins at 7 p.m.
Okay, so yeah, that's an hour and a half.
Okay, so 90 minutes. Okay, so that's a pretty significant amount of time.
If you're actually doing the houses, that's significant. If it's literally just like a glorified stay and scream where you're going in the queue for the houses, which I think is kind of what it's been like in the past, right, Jonathan?
Yeah. So this is a funny scenario because I know you did stay and scream your first year, right, Duff? Or because I know you didn't, or did you not do stay and scream?
No, we walked in as the gates opened.
Okay, so how my experience worked is we would go all the way near, I don't remember which lot, but near Transformers. And they basically, there'd be 2 employees out in front of 2 houses. These are the first 2 to open during that night. It was the one where the soundstage one. Actually, there were 3 last year. It was the Weekend, Killer Clowns, and then the Mummy Queue, which was Legends, was open. And basically, you like at a certain point, the employees said, "All right, you can wait in line," and you waited in line for a bit until the houses opened at, I forgot exactly what time, but it wasn't. I remember I started standing in line at least an hour before, or 30 minutes before, just to get a good spot for Stay and Scream. I don't remember the times, but basically they open it, and then these 3 houses are open, and then after a little bit more amount of time, when the regular gates open, you head to the Harry Potter area, and then they open that, and then you get to experience those 2 houses in the back. And if you do it right, meaning you get there early and you stand in you stand there before Stay and Scream starts, and you plan your day where you're one of the first to get in that first line, whatever the big IP is, you can manage to get 4 houses done in like 30 minutes. If and it could be the biggest IP houses too. Like last year, it was Weekend, Killer Clowns, which those houses seem to get like some of the biggest waits. Halloween, and also Scarecrow. You can do incredibly quickly. So I always recommend Stay and Scream. Even if you have Express, I recommend Stay and Scream. The only time you don't want to do that is obviously if you have a RIP tour, then it's not really needed.
Mhm.
But if other than that, Stay and Scream's always going to be a great option to get houses done super quickly. And I find it fun. I like being at a house and then watching it, especially the soundstage one, watching it turn on as I'm in the soundstage. Like, all right, here we go. Now it's HHN time.
Mhm.
So yeah, Stay and Scream at Hollywood is always a good. Well, it's not called Stay and Scream. Early access is a really good option.
Yeah. Well, it's also only $10, so take advantage if take advantage unless you're doing RIP. And even if you have a later RIP, you might as well take advantage. Why not?
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have? Moving on to our local coast here in Orlando. Uh, sort of HHN related, but not really. The All Hallows Eve boutique at Islands of Adventure now has a Universal Monsters summer overlay, which is Monstergram Pictures, where they basically have an old style like studio going on with the monsters in it. We actually just put up a TikTok about it. It's really cool. I enjoyed it.
Cool. I have to go check that out.
This has to be like Universal going, we're sorry about Minions, right? Because I haven't experienced it in person, but all I see from the pictures are just a ton of Monsters Cafe props thrown in here.
Yeah, pretty much. That's almost exactly what it is. I mean, I'm happy they're getting used.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, put them
Good and
somewhere.
finished, too.
I love to see those props, show up more.
Speaking
So
of,
overall, was it like a good retheme?
yeah, I thought it's
like was
one of the better ones they've done. Some of it's just like really, all of it is really goofy. There's the Universal monsters like running a movie studio, so yeah, it's goofy as hell, and I love it.
awesome.
But speaking of the Minions and the location they took over, the construction walls are down around that entire street, which I forget what they're calling the actual little area. It has a name, right? Or am I wrong?
Illuminations Avenue,
Sure,
I
that.
think.
And Minions Cafe is now open and soft opening, which I actually tried out yesterday.
Ooh.
It's actually
Okay.
pretty solid. Yeah, they had a Szechuan chicken with lo mein. That was pretty good. What else did I get? It was like a French, dip, but without the dip, beef sandwich. Also pretty good. And their tots that are very a very weird batter for tots. They're more like hush puppies or something.
Okay.
But I liked them. They were good.
Like a
They're
corn
pretty
meal.
good. Yeah, exactly. Delicious. Liked it. But the interior definitely has less character and focuses a lot more on being yellow, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Looking at the
yay.
pictures, it certainly does. There's a
And
lot of
our
yellow
last
in
bit, we're
there.
going to go over to Hello Scream Orlando. And this is a fun one because I haven't even ridden it yet, and I probably won't until Hello Scream.
No.
Pipeline will be available to ride at Hello Scream in addition to Mako, Manta, and Icebreaker like they did last year. Night Coaster is always better experience, and you don't get that a lot at SeaWorld, especially like right now, because it doesn't get dark till 8:30, and SeaWorld likes to close not too late. So pretty excited not only to know that I'll get to ride Pipeline without having to go during the day, but to get to ride it at night. That's awesome.
I do want to take one more second going back to the Minion Cafe regarding HHN in particular, because do we think Minion Cafe will be open during Halloween Horror Nights?
I did actually.
I know Monsters Cafe usually
Yeah,
was.
one thing to point out about this that I think it might be is that the stand that was outside of Monsters Cafe and the associated freestyle machines are now gone. Freestyle machines are now only inside Minions Cafe in that area. There is a huge lack of freestyle machines throughout the park, and I think for that reason you kind of have to have it open, if not even like for the food, for the freestyle machine.
Yeah.
But they do have one now.
Yeah.
At the booth over, like right next to Finnegan's, the newer booth that they opened right across from it. So That'll also alleviate it. But still, I think you need to have Minions Cafe open for the freestyle machines.
Okay.
Is that an actual
That's
guess? It
gonna be a
will be.
weird
No,
experience.
I'm just saying they should.
All right, I
Yeah.
think we have some voicemails.
We sure do. Let's get them kicked up.
Hi, it's Lauren. All right, and very excited we got the last of its announcements, finally. Can't wait to see that. Really hoping for after this we'll get a lot more video games and things like that coming to the event, because I would love to see Resident Evil 7 or 8, or even the new Silent Hill that's supposed to be coming up. And there's a lot of other horror games out there. I would love to see something like Dead Space or anything like that come as well. So really excited about that. Really excited for some of the other houses that have been speculated, such as dragons and other things like that. So anyway, that should be it. And thanks. Loving the Discord, loving being able to interact with everybody, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for calling in again, Lauren. I appreciate that. And, thanks for being active in the Discord. We're glad you're enjoying that. But I mean, yeah, if you're really into video game houses, I think potentially The Last of Us could carry us to further. If it really hits well, you know, maybe they're going to look past the fact that it's probably being used more for its pop culture relevance at the moment and just look at more like horror video game properties. I know there's a lot of people who have been pushing for like BioShock as a house. You know, I think that would be great.
We got to that already. It was called Sauce and
Steam. Sauce and Steam / Depths of Fear. Combine them, you got BioShock. But yeah, so hopefully it works out and we can get more. But I am very excited for this one for the time being. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next voicemail.
Hey guys, I'm back. All right, we got an announcement. Last of Us. We're excited. We got the mushrooms in this bitch. Yo, hey, I'm just happy to get an announcement. I don't even give a damn. I'm assuming we're not going to get another one for another, let's say, mid-July. But hey, this is dope. Hopefully Stranger Things will come next. I'm just fucking pumped, man. Anyways, listen to the podcast. Love that shit as always. I'm the dabble of weekend guy, man. Like, you know, I'm all about the weekend shit. But I got to admit, that Idol show is rough. I don't think I can. I've had a dabble enough. You know what I mean? But hey, I just wanted to stop in and say I love y'all like I love y'all. Keep killing it. Let's get this next announcement rolling through. I'm fucking pumped, y'all. Love y'all. Let's get it.
It is amazing to hear your voice again. Thank you for calling. Before we get to the great finish that we're probably going to talk about for longer than we need to, I am hoping mid-July is a bit out there, and it will be more like the first week of July. We'll get another announcement. We'll see.
We're hoping next week.
We are starting to run low on time here on announcements, anyway. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Idol. Woo.
Oh man. So Duff and I, like a train wreck, have decided to keep watching this thing.
We watched episode 3 as it dropped. Just waited up all. Okay, I didn't do that. I watched it during the
next day. I watched it the next day,
and hey, you know what? It started better than the other episodes because it was inadvertently hilarious.
Yes.
Like there was a couple scenes they wanted to be funny. Those weren't the funny scenes. Everything else in the first third of that episode was hilarious to me. Mainly because The Weeknd, Abel, you can't act. I'm sorry. You can't. Which we should have known after the infamous line from episode 2.
But yeah, our listeners don't care about the Idol.
No.
This is the Idol 365. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Don't you look at her again. I'll drag you down the rodeo.
Okay. He's a little bit better than that.
Just a little bit. But yeah, thanks so much for calling in again. We hope to hear from you some more, especially after announcements. I know we're sorry that we've been dabbled out of Abel at this point.
Yeah. He'll come back strong in a couple of years.
Hey, the third album of this trilogy going on. He said more info coming soon, so
Okay.
something exciting. Hey, and not all the music in the Idol is bad.
No,
some of it's pretty good.
The music's okay. Yeah.
So
it's
positives.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all we have for this episode.
Yeah, I think so. We covered basically all of it. So as always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at HHN365 and leave us a voicemail at 407-906-4134. We have a Discord, link is in the description, and a merch shop at hhn365.com and a TikTok at hhn365pod. All right, we'll see you in the streets, and we'll be back next week, hopefully maybe with an announcement. We'll see.